Okay, so I don't know how long this will take, but basically I found myself wanting to kind of profile through cards. And so what I mean by that is that often I have a reading and I see, like I've told you so many times before, I see like top down. It's like, okay, I see the entire picture, and now I need to use my language to articulate exactly what it is that I see broken down, kind of, simplify it in some way for others, whilst trying to be diplomatic, whilst extracting what's unnecessary and keeping in what is apparently necessary, and actually having the judgment to actually do that, because I don't know what's relevant to that person or not. Anyway, there's a whole load of flipping stuff that goes on. I much prefer just giving them the bigger picture. But so to you, I'm going to do that, right? So basically, what I wanted to do was like just show the profiles of nature, of personality that I can identify in cards, depending upon how close it feels to my experience. And when it does feel close to my experience, I gauge the spectrum or the scale upon which that particular event or that personality or that character sits. What I mean by that is one card doesn't equate one character. It's a scale of that character. It's a rainbow of that character, and cards will support that, other cards will support that, and even the card itself that I've identified as the main character, where that sits within a cluster of indicators and characteristics, will change and alter that person in my perception, and therefore make it an entirely different person. I.e., in this instance, I'm going to profile or show you the clusters that I recognise as a bully. But part of the exercise that I was doing, I decided to take out the cards that to me spoke bully, screamed bully. But again, this does relate to your own, it's subjective, it relates to your own experience. So I started putting out the cards, and then there were two cards that came out, and I was like, oh no, that's duty. But I put them to the side anyway, because I thought, well, since you're here, you may as well, whilst you are coming up with these keywords or these profile titles, then may as well like categorize them whilst you're going along. So, but these two cards of duty didn't stop me from continuing with my bully, but then the idea changed. And so what I mean by that is, even though I'd started with cards of the bully, what was happening was I was receiving a mediumship message from a lady who was telling me she had felt obligated, she had felt as though she was the dutiful wife. And she started telling her story through the cards. Now, I'd only taken a portion of the cards to signify what to me was a bully, but she was saying, yes, that's my story thus far. I will pick it up from here and tell you the rest of what this means to me. And so I'm going to share that with you, and then I will then share at some stage, probably in another video, where I do the full spread and then recognizing those clusters of what the bully looks like. So I'll pull up the cards that I pulled to the point that she said, no, you can stop now. Here are the cards that we've agreed now, this is what a bully looks like, but I want to give you further explanation because it's not your bully, but this is how I've communicated to you so that you're able to, what's the word, receive accurate information. But please rest assured, it's not yours. It's not yours to hold or carry, and this is why I've asked you to stop there, and I will continue the rest of the way. So anyway, so these were the cards. So we have Five of Swords. Part of me, when I was originally taking out these cards, wanted to go into detail as to why I saw these things and people as this. But again, it's not about my personal experience. She was just using my personal experience to call closer, to be pulled closer, so that she could then go on her way, continue her journey, spiritually, I suppose, with her heart rested as well. So perhaps it's a dual healing thing going on across both sides of the veil. Okay, so, yeah, Five of Swords. King of Cups. Now, see, the thing is, right, I know I was told not to, but I kind of want to go into explanation from my personal level, but she's saying, just go through the cards that you picked out, and then we'll go back and you can do all the explanation thing. Okay. Oh, Nine of Swords. King of Wands. Seven of Wands. Seven of Swords, apologies, Seven of Swords. Interesting that I said that, Seven of Wands, and then said apologies. Remember that. Four of Wands. Three of Wands. Three of Swords. 10 of Wands. Eight of Cups. And this is where she actually came in, right? Because I was like, I wouldn't have chosen that one, but what had happened was I was so fixed on this bully, I forgot the internal dialogue that had happened, or the interstellar dialogue that had happened. Because whilst I was thinking bully, 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 then the words started to change, and it was like, I left because, and I'm like, that's not me. Where's that coming from? So that's why the Eight of Cups came up. The Moon. The Seven of Wands. Remember that apology with the Seven of Swords, right? The Tower. And the Devil. Right, okay, so these were the cards that I picked out. I'd say about the last 4 or 5 of them, from 8 of Cups onwards, which equals 5, yeah. They were really, really iterated by the lady. And I'm pointing in this direction, which is to my right. But I understand on the camera it may be different. I'm not entirely sure with this flipping of screens thing. Anyway. Oh, and just as I've looked down, she's pointing me to the Queen of Swords. So this is an emancipation for her. And when I spoke of the right and the flipping and not being fully up to speed on what it's going to look like on the camera, may I just add, I did share that story with you, but I just want to quickly remind you of the time when I told you only a couple of days ago, before getting this cold, which this woman has brought with her. But anyway, but she's saying it will clear up now. I was outside and I got this gust of wind go in one ear and it didn't leave my body. It kind of was like, you know when your ears pop and your sound is somewhat muffled? That happened, but it was a very different feeling to the ears popping, but the effect was almost like a muffling within my ear, but I knew it was a spiritual presence. She's telling me that that was her. So that right to left thing is what she's saying. So basically she's come in because she's been magnetized to me. My experience has called to her, but she's also here to clean up, clean out, which other events are starting to support. And once she's done, and she's done her healing, and notice I'm doing the crossing, once she's done her healing, then I too will be healed. Perhaps not to the same degree, or perhaps with the same circumstances or events that created the dissonance, but that's what she's here to solve. She's just here to solve the dissonance. It doesn't matter which one of us has more healing to do than the other, or who had it worse or whatever. It's just, look, we have a shared energy, and we have different ways of dealing with it, but dealing with it together means that it's dealt with permanently, and that's exactly what I like. Right, okay. So those 2 cards of duty were the 5 of Pentacles, and another thing, I'll go into that in a moment, and the Queen of Cups, right? Just before we move any more on, right, I was moving the cards back around, so I was putting them into upright, because as far as I was concerned, I was just going to be highlighting a bully's profile, and so I wanted everything to be as simple as possible, ironically, given that I'm so convoluted. But anyway, I wanted to make everything as simple as possible and show that there really was no need to consider a reversed aspect when you were profiling. You know what you know. You know the bully's a bully. It doesn't matter how many of the 360 degrees you turn that card. In that combination, in that sequence, it still means the same thing, right? So I had that in my mind, but she was saying to me, once I'd gotten to the 8 of Cups and it became her story, she was saying to me, no, leave the reverses, because the reverses, as I'm communicating to you, will tell you that it's him that I'm speaking about. So where it's upright, it's me. Where it's reversed, it's him. So it's nothing to do with a difference in circumstance. It's just a difference in person. So that was her way of telling me that not just it's not always going to be male or female, but the reversal is considered a pole. It doesn't have to be a complete reversal of the situation that you're looking at. It can be like, well, for one person, they're speaking about something that's black, and then the other person might be speaking about something that's white. Someone may be speaking about a subject. The other person might be speaking about an object. It's just a way to flip between to flip through the story, and as you meet certain cards, then the flipping will change as well. So as an example, where she's told me that on the reverse, as in upside down, she'll be relating information that she felt about him, something around him. As we move through the cards, and she's not saying this to me, but I suspect that perhaps we might hit the High Priestess, and in wherever it hits, wherever it sits with the modifying cards, it may be that's about secrets or something, and then it will set the upright may be that there are no secrets, and reversed may mean that there are things to be revealed. So it takes some discernment as well, but it also takes very acute listening. Astute, I'll take that as well. But yeah, it takes a high level of connection, a high connection, in order to trust She's saying to be trusted. So I'll go with that. Thanks. You're very kind. Right, okay, so now, what is she telling me? So I'm going to go back through those cards again, but then I'm going to work through as much of the deck as I can before it becomes boring for you. But just to give you an example, now a note, I will read through the entire deck regardless of whether you're here witnessing it or not, because the entire deck is what gives me the full overview. So I'm just going to read as she speaks. This is literally tarot as a language for me. So she was saying, when you were outlining the bully to yourself, well, she was actually saying to me, so will you be myself this time? Anyway, yeah, so when you were outlining the bully, I wanted you to pick up this King of Cups. Now, okay, before we go any further, there was actually a reading that I did around a King of Cups character, one not just in the cards but an actual physical representation of the King of Cups character, and I know that many are quite enamored with the King of Cups. I wasn't, and in both instances, physically and on the cards, and so I did this reading and said, look, this dude is like really faking it, but okay, if everyone else wants to believe it, that's absolutely fine. I was speaking about the physical manifestation, but anyway, she's saying that time that you did that reading, because a lot was revealed in that reading, including physical abuse, she's saying that's why I asked you to pick this up, because I want you to know that there is confirmation from me that that certainly is the case. Also with the King of Cups, they can be somewhat condescending in their lower aspects. Now, don't get me wrong, the King of Cups, like any of the other cards, has immensely beautiful characteristics, and that doesn't mean that, however, it's fixed in that way. Everything is transient, everything transcends, everything traverses, and if you hit crosswinds, you are likely, or more susceptible anyway, to the dissonance that can come with that. And the King of Cups, whether considered a court card or not, is no doesn't escape that, basically. Right, okay, so Nine of Swords, basically he used to excuse me. Oh wow. He used to oh my god, I'm hearing he used to beat her in her sleep. Now, I've heard that before. I've actually heard it from someone actually said that to me one time, and I remember, I'm not gonna lie, I remember feeling as though, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't believe it. And it's not about judgment or not, it didn't ring true to me. But those who are aware of how spirit works, and that spirit will find you outside of time, and so the words will land with the actors of spirit, essentially like puppets of spirit, and usually it's the puppet of the defendant in the spiritual courts. What I mean by that is that King of Cups character, where the revelations came out, and she's just confirmed it with the beating in the sleep thing. This character, when I did the reading, I did say that that's what had happened as well. And this character, because they are the defendant, and because that makes them have a lower vibration, they hit the physical quicker, if you like. And oh, there's so much to go into on this. Oh, wow. Okay, I don't know why that just zoomed in. I whacked it. Anyway, something's going on. He's trying to stop me here. But I will continue, right? So basically, right, what happens is when they hit spiritual court, they hit the end of their lives, everything is timeless. Everything is simultaneous and happens at one time. But when it comes to your story being witnessed, your story being observed in the physical realm, it's likely that it's the defendant, if guilty, who will be able to use their physical puppets first, because they already came from the lowest realms. They came from the lowest vibrations, the denser vibrations. And when it's closing off, as in when both sides get their say, in this instance, the lady of that story, that I probably shan't share the full amount of because it was actually quite horrific, but the lady of that story, as the spiritually pardoned, if you like, as the favoured, is now coming in to finalise and close that SHIT off. Right, okay, so where was I? So the King of Cups, he's not exactly a nice character right now, and he's letting me know this by trying to interfere with my stuff. Let me just move this back a bit more. Okay. King of Wands. Okay, so King of Wands was one of my cards. This is one of my identifiers in combination with the previous cards, particularly with the Five of Swords. There's actually a physical resemblance, I feel, between the face of the King of Wands and the Five of Swords. And the wand suit, particularly when dealing with the people that I generally deal with, or when I say people, bodied and disembodied, is generally around abuse. Now, it doesn't mean that wands does represent abuse. What I mean is that those who come to me generally come to me with a story of abuse. Not all the time, but sometimes enough for me to start to notice the pattern that sits with those visits. And so wands can be about the nature of both the person or the spirit that is communicating with me and those that they are speaking of. And when it comes to nature, literally the animalistic nature, now that doesn't mean that that makes someone a tyrant or someone who is a threat in any way, but there are animal parallels. There are some people who are more attuned to the characteristics or personality of, let's say, a cat, but then there are those who still are a cat, but they're a big cat and they're not a cat to be reckoned with. Do you know what I mean? There are certain physical attributes that people may have that would liken them to the animal in them. So basically the wand suit is a great internal view, an insight on the animal, primal, instinctive. And when I speak those words, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're without thought, without consideration, or lack intelligence. They're just the words that I know relate to what I'm trying to say, but there's more to it. There's basically the actual animal in them, and that actually happens. Like, spirit moves through the animal. There is the human of the spirit, there is the animal of the spirit, there is the vibratory objects of that spirit, the things that represent that spirit, and you will find they come in sets. Interesting, isn't that like the dude who tried to like top off Osiris or something along those lines? Anyway, right, or Horus. But yeah, so it's telling me, particularly as what had happened before then, when the King of Cups wasn't too happy with me, and that King of Wands is holding his staff thing. Staff also relates to music as well, as in STAV, which is the 5 lines that musical notation takes place on. And if you look at the plinth or the platform that the King of Wands is sat upon, you can see they look like piano keys. So there's a lot in music as well that can be communicated through the King of Wands or the wand suit, which is where the animalistic part comes in, because it's a shared reception and transmission across human to animal and across species. It's common to both species, and so is communicable between species, but that's a different thing. We'll go into that another time. 7 of Swords, very similar again for me in terms of features with the King of Wands and the 5 of Swords, and these 3 cards together as a trine certainly do indicate bullying. And the 7 of Swords, she's saying basically, yeah, he beat me in my sleep with all those cards. And just what you said about that placement, about the physical meeting, about the spiritual meeting the physical, but the wrong end of the spiritual meeting the physical first, is true. It's placed, basically. So where there is an accusation in spiritual court, the accused, and I'm using accused and what's the word when the person's the accuser, the accused and the accuser, let's say, regardless of who's accused or not, basically the one who did a wrong will try to manipulate through the hosts of that physical realm to remove themselves from the blame of the situation. So in this case, who was the King of Wands in that particular reading at the time? Basically, in spirit, you have to admit, you can't lie, basically. So what you can do is you can embellish the truth, i.e. add to what's already there, so you can cushion it, you can try to disguise it and mask it with the lie, or you can omit what is actually being said and allow the person in the physical to fill in the gaps. But what that does basically is it still meets you, but it kind of buys you time. It buys you time before the verdict, as it were. So that's essentially what the King of Cups in this thing did. He was like, he used another being, he used a physical being, knowing that there would be judgment literally at this time by me, to face me and confess on his behalf, but in a mirrored version of his behalf. And so I know what the King of Cups that I was reading in a physical sense looks like, but the person that he chose to voice the words of his confession, or the people that he chose to voice the words of his confession, because this is again a card of placement. And so like music, you can place certain bits of information with certain vibratory or what's the word, harmonious, it doesn't mean good, just vibratory harmonious people, i.e. if they've shared an experience in some way, or if they like to gossip, or if they like to, or if they just switched off, completely switched off to the point where they would literally just regurgitate whatever is put into them, which is what he chose. Yeah, he chose a mirror of that. So he chose where he looks a certain way, and notice I keep saying he. The person who said it to me was a woman who was relatively young, blonde, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, felt like a bit of an airhead. So it's like he was using the image that he had of his wife, who's now here, at the time, to tell her story, so that when the story got to the verdict, he would be seen as less of an a-hole, essentially, because there are penalties that go with how much of the truth is revealed, etc. So you're better off telling it all, but if you've done a wrong and you kind of try and spread it out, but time, well, yeah, there's a lot that goes with that. Right, okay, there's loads to get through, so let's do this. Four of Wands. So she was saying basically, I'm not even going to go into what's what now, I'm just going to read them continuously. So she's saying basically, he really loved the idea of pretending that everything was okay. He's deluded in that he keeps basically telling anyone who'll listen, oh, my wife died. Oh, that's another thing I probably have to go into. Because we're on the physical, he's still here to a degree, but is every day lessening and lessening. But anyway, yeah, oh, my wife died, oh, poor me, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, dude, if I didn't die, I would have flipping exited way before this. You're flipping nuts. You're absolutely nuts, right? You have this way of telling the world on one side that all is okay, but no one sees that other side of you. And if you look at this Three of Wands, I think turning it around might help. When you look at that, it looks like a hand. It looks like a hand, like fist in glove. It doesn't look like a fist, but it's like a hand. And she's saying he backhanded me. I'm like, whoa, okay. She's also saying he didn't just backhand me, he backended me as well. So that description that I gave about spirit and placing in different time zones and in different scenarios to basically confess so that it doesn't hurt so much at the other end is essentially how, I know, if you look at like Tetris and you have those the blocks, but the person above knows what blocks meant to go where, and they will purposefully manipulate you to arrange those blocks to suit their agenda. That's essentially what happened with him. But yeah, he was extremely violent, is what she was saying. Excuse me. So despite the two-faced and the deluded home thing, excuse me. Isn't it interesting? Each time I pick up a swords card, the air in me and the coughing, and coughing is what I'm hearing there, seems to get a lot more irritating on my chest and throat. I do have a cold, admittedly, but it seems to be like even more intense with these. But anyway, yeah, so there we go. So the Three of Swords, she's saying that was a heart condition. There was something about myocardia or something, heart disease. Whether it's hers or his, let's have a look. She's saying you don't need to know, it's hers. It's hers. Okay, cool. Right. So through smoking. Interesting how it's moving from the bully, right, to her. And that's the whole point of this. She's saying that, like, I don't give a crap as to what he does now. And I don't want him to have any impact or effect upon how I choose to live or exist or be going forward. He's not part of my set, basically. And so now it's not about what he did. It's about what use he can be to me, of what use the situation, as undesired and as horrible as it was, can now be to me. It's about building, essentially. Which Eight of Cups kind of confirms, and isn't it interesting that that's the intersection at which I became aware of her. She said, I put up with this nonsense for way too long. I defended myself, and not for want of trying did I try to set boundaries. But now he's taking the mick. He's taking the absolute mick now. Which is why he's going to suffer. And notice my face is like, I'm taking this personal, right? But it feels like it as well. So yeah, she's like, no, he's got to go. He has to go, right? Because he piled on me. See, in the spiritual court, right? See, the devil's not so bad. It's just that we hear it at different times. We receive the actual information at different times throughout our lives. When people fear this card, what they're fearing is the end. but the end brings with it completion. You don't just get half of the story, and you don't even know you've had half the story until you get to the end. You know what I'm saying? So don't be too bad on the devil. He's not a bad soul, trust me. But anyway, yeah, she was saying, like, when he got to spiritual court, he still tried to manage me through fear. He still tried to control me through fear. Now, you're probably asking, how is this? What do you see in the devil card? Well, I'll tell you what I see, right? You see the devil, right? First of all, same position as the Hierophant. There's something in that, right? And if you look at the Hierophant's stomach, if I get to the Hierophant in a minute, I'll show you. Get to the Hierophant's stomach, and you'll actually see what looks to be the outline of a head within the stomach. And I often liken it to the shape of the devil's head, like the devil is inside the Hierophant, right? But anyway, besides that, the pose that the devil is in, I often liken it to like the afferent and efferent function of nerves. You're probably like, well, Chanel, you're getting all medical. Basically, you get like the reaction to, say if you touch something hot, the afferent will be the pain sensation that comes in, and the reaction to that will be the efferent, the bit going out, as to what you actually do, what the nerve instructs, what the nerve informs the brain that then instructs your body to do, basically. So it's info coming in, info going out. The devil is harnessing that energy of nerves, right? And so imagine this is the spiritual court of everything now. It's not just about the nice stuff. It's not about all the positive and floaty and all spiritual stuff. It's about everything. Like, I get to see all the porn that you watched. I get to see every desire you had. I get to see every moment of all of the 7 deadly sins. I get to witness that in you and realize what you actually meant to me and what I meant to you, and vice versa. That's what that card's about, and it's a flipping harsh lesson to learn, but it's an absolutely outstanding, amazing, and cleansing lesson once you've gone through it, because then it's like, I know what that looks like now. I can die happy, all good. But anyway, yeah, so the devil rides on the nerves, and she's basically saying he was the devil. Interesting, the devil here does kind of look like him. He tried to reign through fear. See this at the bottom right? Once, not bottom right, but once you get past this kind of like pubis looking part of the devil, look at the chains and look at this part here, and it looks like a face of like a hyena or a coyote or a bear, right? So it's like saying to me that there's dormant energy there, and exactly what I was saying about when you get to the end, it's only then that you get the full story. It's like the bear is out of hibernation, so he was basically trying to ride her while she was asleep. And when I say ride, I mean about using her energy, basically bullying her or elevating himself above her whilst she was in a somewhat submissive state. But another thing that I read about this particular character, which is highlighting itself to me here, is when you look at the torso of the devil, if you take away the arms and you look at the torso, what you have is a baby's face, a sleeping baby. And that there, like the belly button, looks like a little dummy or something, or pacifier. The 2 breasts look like the eyes, and the beard of the devil looks like the tuft of hair, which reminds me of that nursery rhyme, or is it, there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. Basically, this woman here is saying to me, yeah, his flipping child was exactly the same. Now, she didn't actually have children with him. They got together later on in life, but what she did say was that his excuse me, she's saying his bitch of a daughter was exactly the same. So I'll leave that image with the devil in it for you to analyze, because there's a lot of information in it that kind of speaks to the devil card's work. It's not the devil himself. It's the scenario that is presented when meeting the energy of this card. It's not an actual character. It's a personification of many people that you will meet throughout life. Each time the devil's, not face necessarily, but the devil's aura, the persona will change according to who is inserted in this card. When you start seeing stuff about these people, you'll realize that it's likely to be the ones that you only had half a story on, thinking that you had it all. But anyway, right, there's that. Okay, so now let's run through. I'll go for another 5 minutes. I think that's sufficient. Right, okay. So she's saying, oh, I'm not even looking at these cards now. So she's saying dying was an absolute flipping victory. Why is that? Because when you die, particularly for women, well, only for women, no, it happens for men as well, but when you die, basically your reproductive organs, though shut down, and for many people they've been considered shut down way before death, because most, well, not most, but many die in old age. She didn't die in old age, but she died post-menopausal, or around there anyway. She's saying, like, I'd done that bit. But what happens when you die is your inner world expands, and you close your eyes in one world, in the physical, and you open them as you would, but on the other side. And it takes, for some, it takes lifetimes to even gather that they've actually died, if you know what I mean, because you're not aware of it. There's no awareness of it. You just shed the skin that you had here and wake up with not a new skin. See, there's so much to go into. You wake up with your skin over there, but it could be that you're 20 years younger, but you weren't aware of the death over here, and so you just resumed life where you last closed your eyes, if you know what I mean. So where your sleep was of most quality and value, then you can return to that space. Some do it knowingly, more do it unknowingly. But anyway, so she was saying basically your fluids, your eggs and your sperm basically have a life of their own, and you go back into your life, you walk into the inner life with these things absolutely alive outside you. They become your environment, right? So she's like, obviously I'd had him in me at some stage, but because of when you die, basically, all dust becomes like, how do I put this? Oh God, you made it so hard. Okay, basically saying like everything like minuscule and microscopic becomes macroscopic. And so the dust of the skin becomes other people. Literally the cells of skin become other people. Usually family members, because they're derivatives of your own skin in many cases. But then animals that you might have had in your most frequent places that you most frequented whilst living, can suddenly be human but have animal tendencies or animal personalities. So you could be speaking to a human and you're like, I recognize you in a different way. I feel like I trust you, or I dislike you, or whatever it is, but I know I've known you. And then it's like, but you hold on a minute, you had 4 legs then. Like, what the friggin' heck is going on? And they're kind of giving you that look like, yeah, I've been practicing being a human, but yeah, you're right, I'm essentially a dog. But like, you know, I did try, and I know you loved me and I loved you, and that's why I tend to come back to you each and every time. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Right, but anyway, so she's saying that essentially he was in her, and so her inner world, when she woke up into it, was a bit of a disarray, because she was like, okay, I know these people, but they're not fully my people. But because she went back in time, as it were, as in back to before him, she didn't recognize it as being his. She just knew it wasn't hers, if you know what I mean. She kind of recognized enough of herself to say, okay, I'm in this world, I suppose, I'm occupying it, but there's someone else like pulling the strings here. What the hell? Him is what happened. But it took her some time to recognize him, because when you go into your inner world, you're going in the opposite direction. And so what was time going one way on the outer becomes time going the opposite way on the inner. And so you don't know who you don't know yet. Do you know what I mean? Are we nearly 5 minutes up? Okay. She's like, yeah, he stabbed me in the back. Now, here's another thing that happens with spirit, right? Because they're able to access physical, denser, vibrational people, what they tend to do from the end, because they're aware that their time is up, they try to get shit rewritten, right? They try to get documents and stuff rewritten. And she's like, he stabbed me in the back because he got my will rewritten, right? This has happened so many times. So many people come to me with this complaint. They're like, what are they doing? They just like, I left everything to this one person and there's no mention of them in my will. And now I'm going to have to wait the 40 years it's going to take for it to be proven that it was left to them, and there'll be nothing left. Like, what? How are these people allowed to get away with this? So, how are these people allowed to get away with this? Right, okay, so the portals. Interesting. I only had a debate with myself this morning, actually, about portals. I was like, how is it, right, that everyone seems to get everything they want, and I'm just sat here, like, completely destitute, completely, like, without any flipping funds, resources, friendships, communication, nothing. But yet I'm not a bad person. I'm not a nutter. I'm not, like, I'm not unkind. I'm articulate. What is this about, right? And I was being told that it's literally, you are sat at the mirror, you are sat at the doorway, you are the portal. And basically, you're so nice that people will come and talk to you and you're not realizing they're dropping stuff off with you. And they're saying, hold that for me a moment, Chanel. I'm just going to go and get myself a cup of tea. Entering that mirror, going through that portal, through that vortex, and then achieving the life of their dreams because you've spoken it into existence rather than them picking up their crap and taking it with them whilst walking in the opposite direction. So she's... As I was saying this, right, I was speaking it into the card and I could feel the vibration of the air in my fingertips. And even though I was joking, well, I wasn't actually joking, like, even though I was saying it in a jovial way, she's saying to me, no, that's exactly what happened. And this is a sensitivity that you must exercise to ensure that it doesn't happen to anyone else. You are the guardian for this, Chanel. So we're healing here, we're healing. Right, I'm going to do 2 cards more and then that's it, okay? So, 5 of Wands. See, notice it was reversed. And she was saying about him or her, right? So she's saying he tried to rebuild. He's been trying to rebuild. But I'm not having it. I know what he's about and I'm smarter now. I'm absolutely smarter now. And that rebuilding of the spiritual versus physical, I'm at the top of this now. And he's my physical world. He is that. He is the tame animal. Oh, now I'm going to have to do the 3rd card. And I'm cutting that beep out. Absolutely cutting that beep out, right? But check this out. Reversed. Here's him trying to grow, trying to, not even sow seeds, but to basically reroot himself. And use that word wisely because it comes in 2 forms. There is reroot as in established roots, re-established roots. But then there is also reroot as the 7 of Swords showed us, where there is a placement where you can manipulate the words and vibrations that were used when it was in its purity and in totality, and fragment it to the point where it becomes a different message. And she's saying, I'm cutting that shite out.